Caught on camera, Delhi's heartlessness. A 17-year-old young kid, Raju, was repeatedly stabbed and left to bleed to death. Take a look at these images. Heartless Delhi standing totally exposed once again. For 1 full hour, 17-year-old Raju lay bleeding in southeast Delhi. There was a crowd of onlookers, and you can see them in those images right there, who are standing around. You can see that police personnel in khakis looking at this kid lying on the ground and not bothering to help. They were more interested in establishing who carried out this attack, where those people went. None of these people think that it is their responsibility to take this young kid to the hospital to ensure that he gets medical attention immediately. Instead, they just stand around for 1 full hour, for more than 60 minutes, as this young kid lies bleeding to death. I want to go across to my colleague Shiv Arur, who's got more details on this story. Shiv, what more have we been able to establish about this particular case, this young kid, who attacked him and how he was allowed to die, Shiv?
Rahul, this was some kind of a personal dispute. The information that we have is after this entire incident happened and 17-year-old Raju lost his life, the police have been able to arrest 2 people. It was some kind of a personal dispute, the nature of which we don't know. We've seen scores of videos that, depict heartless Delhi in the past before, Rahul, but never in such a brazen and disturbing manner, have we seen so many people. In this video that we've got on our screens and playing for our viewers, it happened today in southeast Delhi. You can actually see people with their mobile phones, taking pictures of Raju as he lies there, bleeding out. You can see a policeman bending over Raju, not trying to help him for a single moment, actually asking him questions. If you want to know how long that youth lay there on the ground with that crowd around him, a bit of traffic, a busy marketplace in Ambedkar Nagar in southeast Delhi, it was about 55 minutes according to eyewitnesses. For 55 minutes, Rahul, this boy actually lay there and he bled out. He lost his consciousness. After he lost consciousness, he was taken to a hospital by the police. So remember, he was actually being questioned until he lost consciousness. When he lost consciousness, he was taken to a hospital where he was declared brought dead. So for that entire 55 minutes, he was either just lying there unattended. Nobody took the initiative to step in, put him into an auto or a car or anything and take him to the nearby hospital. The police came there, they questioned him for over 20 minutes until he actually bled to death. He was talking to them, he was answering their questions. It was totally apparent how badly injured he was, how life-threatening his injuries really were. There was a pool of blood around him. We've had to blur those images because they're so disturbing. But he lost his life simply because the onlookers and the police didn't do their duty, which was to save the young man's life before doing everything else. And what the police did was question him, interrogate him, asking for information about his attackers instead of getting him to a hospital first.
What disturbs me is that time and again we see the same response in our big cities. You could be shot, bleeding to death. You could be stabbed, bleeding to death. A crowd gathers. They're more interested in getting pictures which they can put on social media, WhatsApp to each other. They couldn't bother about anyone lying on the ground bleeding. This could happen to you, it could happen to me, it can happen to any of us. And what is particularly worrying is that each time society's response is exactly the same. Let's move on to our other big story tonight. Shankaracharya Swami Swarupananda has stirred another storm by declaring that Hindu men should be allowed to marry twice in case the women that they are married to cannot bear children. The same Shankaracharya had just day before yesterday at the Dharam Sansad said that Sai Baba is not a god and that Sai statues should be demolished. Now Swarupanand says that Indian scriptures allow for bigamy, and in case there is a problem with the woman, men should be allowed to get married again. This is a story that has women and men all across the country outraged and frothing.
Swami Swarupanand, Shankaracharya of Dwarka Peeth, has stirred a massive controversy. After asking devotees not to worship Sai Baba, he now says that Hindus who don't have children should be allowed to marry twice.
हिंदू एक स्त्री के रहते दूसरी स्त्री के विवाह नहीं करते, भले संतान के लिए जब तक उसको तलाक ना दे, या तो सबके साथ तलाक जाए।
That's not all. The government says that the law is unequal since Muslims are allowed to legally marry 4 times and Hindus just once.
हिंदू है वो केवल एक ही विवाह कर सकता है, जबकि मुसलमान 4 विवाह करते हैं। आप इसकी विषमता को दूर करने के लिए कोई कानून बनाने वाले थे, उसमें देर क्यों हो रही?
Swarupanand's comment has drawn support from other saints too, who claim that the scriptures say that a man can marry more than once to carry forward his lineage.
पूज्य जगत गुरु शंकराचार्य स्वामी स्वरूपानंद जी ने जो कहा है वो शास्त्र सम्मत है, धर्म सम्मत है। उन्होंने विवेक पूर्वक और विचार पूर्वक कहा है।
आदि काल में हमारे यहाँ एक पत्नी से संतान होती थी या नहीं होती थी, नहीं होने के बावजूद अगर संतान थी उसके बावजूद भी दूसरी पत्नी तीसरी पत्नी इससे शादी करके हमारे यहाँ परंपराएं थी।
Polygamy is prohibited under the Hindu Marriage Act of 1995. While according to Shariat law, a Muslim man can legally have 4 Muslim wives, provided his marriage with the first wife was not registered under the Special Marriage Act 1954. He can then not marry during his first wife's lifetime. If he does, he would face criminal charges. Swarupanand's comment has triggered a massive debate and is threatening to explode into a full-blown controversy. Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
This is one of India's senior-most seers, a man whom millions look up to, Swami Swarupanand Saraswathi, Shankaracharya, who now believes and says it is okay for men to marry twice, and he lays the blame in typical patriarchal fashion on the woman who he says seems to have problems in bearing a child, and then it's okay for the man to marry twice. Joining us on the center stage face-off tonight, we've got Abha Singh, lawyer, women's rights activist. Rahul Easwar is a spokesperson of the Sabrimala temple, and Sadhvi Sonia is a religious leader. She supports the Shankaracharya in his views. And I want to go across first to Sadhvi Sonia. Why, ma'am, despite being a woman, do you agree with what Swarupanand Saraswati is saying? Most women and men are quite appalled and outraged with the fact that someone who's as respected a seer as the Shankaracharya would make a comment of this nature.
So first of all, Rahul Kavalji, I would like to make clear that such kind of a statement has not come from Shankaracharya ji. It was not given in any kind of Dharma Sansad. Dharma Sansad was only on the issue of Sai and rest of the Hindu temple or Sanatani Dharma subjects.
Now one second, we've got over here a comment in case you're in any doubt whatsoever, and I can play it out immediately again, where we've got the Shankaracharya Swarupanand Saraswati himself saying that it is okay for men to marry twice in case women are having a problem in childbirth, and several of his followers all across have actually come out, Rahul Easwar, and defended and justified what this very respected, very renowned, much followed Shankaracharya is saying. It makes no sense to me, Rahul.
Shankaracharya is a very respected person who is 90 plus. There are diversity of viewpoints regarding life choices, marriage choices. Even 60 years back, India was having polygamy. Even right now, some tribal communities and one particular section of minority community marries more than one. They can even marry up to 4, but nobody is questioning it since we don't have a uniform civil code. There are diversity of choices. I believe in monogamy because monogamy was the most successful of all human institutions. Having said that, these kind of
systems not only about belief, Rahul Easwar, it's about law. Indian law does not allow bigamy or polygamy for Hindu men. The Hindu Marriage Act strictly forbids this.
Rahul Kavalji, Indian Indian law allows for marriage for some people. Let us not get into a law debate, but this was kind of a relic, a culture of the past. We need not agree with it, but we need not condemn it too. There are difference of viewpoints. We are a very diverse nation. We should be thinking about united in being diversity. These kind of cultural opinions are definitely there. The counter question is, what if a woman wants to marry? If a man cannot give her a child, can she marry again? Is a very legitimate question that can be raised. Such kind of different opinions do exist in our society, especially in ancient tribal groups. They exist.
You're making this seem to be
these comments
a cultural issue. You're making it seem as if this is a freedom of choice. You can say what you want, you can do what you want. Abha Singh, what seems to be lost in this debate is the reality that Indian law strictly forbids bigamy or polygamy for Hindu men. It's simply not okay, and it's not okay for such senior respected seers to be endorsing bigamy or polygamy.
I am appalled at such a statement coming from a learned man like Shankaracharya Saraswathi. India has a robust democracy, unlike its neighbors, which all are failed states because of a healthy constitution. And today there is a rule of law in this country which says that bigamy is an offense. In fact, the Hindu Marriage Act section 17 says that whether a man or a woman, if he has a partner living alive, cannot marry again, and if he does, then under 494 of the Indian Penal Code, he can be imprisoned up to 7 years. When the law says this, who are these people to come up with their own ideas, which is not only derogatory to women, but it violates the fundamental principles of the Constitution, which says equal protection of laws for women and men. And where is the equality of law, equality before the Constitution? If you are giving a separate right for women and a separate thing for man, if a woman
that's an important point you make, and I want to go across to Rahul Easwar and what Abha Singh is saying. This is not about freedom of choice. This is not about a libertarian opinion which the Shankaracharya is voicing. What he says is grossly illegal and must be condemned, Rahul Easwar.
As a modern youth, as a person who strongly believes in women's rights, I can totally understand and be with Abha Singh's statement. She has a very right outrage. But we should understand the cultural diversity of India in such a context. When we say about monogamy, Indian law allows 4 marriages to one community. Indian law allows even the girls.
How is that a justification, Rahul Easwar? So even if Muslims are allowed to marry more than once, how is that a justification for allowing Hindu men to marry more than once? I see no correlation.
Exactly. We need not accept or we need not approve of the marriages, but we need to acknowledge that such kind of cultural diversity exists, especially in some tribal groups. Still polygamy is practiced, polyandry is practiced.
No, but one second, Rahul Easwar, I think you're trying to be too clever by half over here, because the Shankaracharya has said nothing about tribal practices. He said nothing about cultural practices. He's made what reeks of a patriarchal mindset, a statement which suggests that a woman who cannot produce a child, if she is the wife of a husband, of a man, that man can marry again. Now that comment by itself, and in case there's any doubt that Sadhvi Sonia has about whether he made this comment or not, let's just listen to the Shankaracharya himself saying this. So there's no doubt in anybody's head about what the Shankaracharya said.
एक स्त्री के रहते दूसरी स्त्री के विवाह नहीं करते, बलि संतान के लिए जब तक उसको तलाक ना दे, या तो सबके साथ तलाक जाए.
He suggests that because Muslim men are allowed to marry more than once, therefore if women are unable to bear children, Hindu men too should be allowed to do the same. Now Abha Singh, the point that Rahul Easwar makes is, and this comes back of course to the whole uniform civil code debate, that why should one community get extra privileges, but that really takes away from the essence of what Shankaracharya is saying, and that is highly patriarchal, that if a woman can't bear a child without taking into account the fact that the man could be impotent and incapable of bearing a child himself, but that is essentially what he is suggesting.
Firstly, the Indian constitution or the Indian law does not talk of negative equality, that if somebody has this, we should also have this. Tomorrow they will say in some community there are child marriages, so we should also start that. You have to see what the law is today, and today the law bans bigamy, and by talking like these they are trying to break the law, violate the law, and they too become criminals to some extent by inciting people to break the law. Now, nonetheless, if you talk of women equality, in fact all the women rights which has been talking till now, it is such a regressive statement which comes from Shankaracharya and other literate people who are talking that if a woman is barren, then a man marries again. Also it goes against the demography of the country, where you have 940 women per thousand, and tomorrow you are going to have a man marrying 2 women. What is going to happen? In fact, the men will be at a loss. There will be no women for half the population to get married.
I want to go across to Sadhvi Sonia, because you said that it's not the Shankaracharya, it's somebody else who made this comment. I just played out for you once more the Shankaracharya himself, Sarupanand Saraswati, saying that Hindu men should be allowed to marry twice. As a woman especially, do you not think this is all wrong for the Shankaracharya to be suggesting this, ma'am?
Rahul Kamalji, first of all, this was not in contest of Dharm Sansad at all. So you need to make clear that this was not in contest of Dharam Sansad. Dharam Sansad was only in contest of Sai Temple and Mazar to be together should not be there. So that Sanatan Mandir, all Sanatan Mandir should remove Sai Murtis from there, Sai idols from there. It was only in that contest. As far as this thing is concerned, I had reconfirmed from the ashram, and I had been given this clearance from there that Shankaracharya ji has not given any such kind of statement in contest that they will pass an issue that they allow twice marriage for Indian men whose wife can't bear a son or a child. That is absolutely wrong. But there was a question arised where it was asked, is it possible where Muslims are allowed to have 4 marriages? Can in Hindus also something like this can happen? Then he had just answered, yes, there is a provision for Hindus also that they can also have second marriage if required in specific situations.
Now, one second, Sadhvi Sonia,
it does not mean that he is giving
where does this provision exist? It might exist in somebody's head, it doesn't exist in the law. Where does this provision exist?
Just Rahulji, just tell me one thing. Abaji is also there. Few months after, some time back, as per my information, there was a law passed by Law and Order. One thing has come up that the people who are having a living relationship, the other woman can also have equivalent right to the property of one man who is actually not married to the person. Thus, it allows a healthy relationship for that other woman also in society, or she is leading a life of guilt. Can you please answer me on this? And if we are in
the point that you are raising is irrelevant, Abba, saying to the fact that a Hindu man cannot marry twice. That is reality, that is law. This has got nothing to do with somebody who's unmarried, has another partner. The point that Sadhvi Sonia raises is completely irrelevant and immaterial to this debate.
No, definitely it is connected to this debate. Just tell me one thing, why don't you all speak up for one thing? In India there should be only one marriage for all the religions.
But that's a different debate.
Whatever their personal relations.
You just heard Abba Singh say that there is no negative equality because and I must state here that I am all for the Uniform Civil Code, and I strongly believe that there should be one law for all communities. Equality. But Rahul Easwar, that is not the debate tonight.
Exactly.
Just because one community is allowed to do something which you are unhappy with, and you've got good reason to be unhappy, it doesn't mean, Abba Singh, that is used as a pretext to suggest that a Hindu man is allowed to get married twice over. That's not all right, Abba Singh.
Rahul Kamalji,
just one by one. I will moderate this debate and I can't have all people speaking at the same time. I want at this time Abba Singh to make a point.
See, also the Constitution under Article 25 says every citizen in this country has a right to practice, propagate and profess any religion. So when we are saying we are a secular country, every religion has a right to follow its own principles, its values, and today you cannot start comparing Parsis, Hindus, Sikhs with their religions. This is the diversity of the country, and tomorrow you say the Hindus should also have triple talaq.
Law and order should
You cannot violate the constitution, madam.
If a person goes and does a crime and he kills a person and says I am in so and so and it should be allowed for me, it won't be allowed for any.
No, but Sonia, what you're saying is correct, but that is not the point. That is not the point. Just because one community is allowed to do something, it doesn't mean that you allow everyone else to go out and do the same thing. Rahul Easwar, I'm out of time on this debate, so I'll give you 20 seconds to wrap up.
In fact, you say I have murdered your daughter.
Rahul Kawalji, just 2 points. One, we are all for uniform civil code. There are Hindu groups and Muslim groups have their own viewpoints. But let there be no discrimination, and we should uphold monogamy because that is progressive, that is civilizational. Having said that, when discrimination exists, one group or the other will come and say we are being discriminated. Let us not have any discrimination. Let us come to a common law. That is the solution for all these kinds of statements.
I disagree with both what Rahul Easwar and Sadhvi Sonia are saying. There is no question about the need that we need to move towards a uniform civil code. But that cannot be taken to mean that just because Muslims are allowed to get married more than once, a very respected seer, a man who's followed very closely by millions of devotees, suggests that Hindu men to be allowed to do the same. There is no negative equality. This suggestion makes absolutely no sense regardless of who the person this comes from. Abha Singh, Rahul Easwar, Sadhvi Sonia for joining us on Center Stage tonight. Thank you very much. Last night.